Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Baja, California in Mexico. Sorry, the train just came in. Did you hear that? Anyway, Baja, California in Mexico. This is, of course, the northern half of the Baja Peninsula. The entire peninsula is called Baja California, but the northern half is also called Baja California. It's don't make it too complicated. It used to be called Baja California Norte, and down here this is Baja California Sur, which we're going to talk about next on the channel. But the name was officially changed to just Baja California. So you can think of it as Norte if you want, which means north in Spanish. But that is its name now, and the name of the entire peninsula. Makes it really complicated to research just this part. But there's a lot to look at here, so we need to dive in. Probably the most famous aspect of Baja is right up here. You can see here is the border with the United States, bordering California and a little bit of Arizona. Right here's the city of Tijuana, and it is on the other side of the border with the city of, oh, you can't see. There we go. The city of San Diego in California. They essentially would bleed into each other if it weren't for a huge border wall blocking the way and a massive, I guess, immigration border crossing patrol station that everyone has to go through and be checked and everything. It is the most crossed border in the Western Hemisphere. There are other major cities up here along the border, like Tecate, which, yes, that's where they make the beer, Tecate, and the capital, Mexicali, which, yes, that is a portmanteau of Mexico and California. The city that it bleeds into on the other side is Calexico in California. But Mexicali is a big, bustling, thriving city, and Calexico is just a little farm town. This is Imperial Valley over here in California. Just like a man-made kind of agricultural region, I suppose, to entice people to move into Death Valley. Because up here we have the Sonora Desert. It comes in also from Arizona, coming into this section of Baja. The rest of Baja is very, very mountainous. You can see the many mountain ranges here. I have it on my notes. Let me read that instead of the map. I'm really far away from my map. The Sierra de Juarez runs down there, and to the Sierra de San Pedro Martir. And down here is the Sierra de San Borja. Almost all the way down here to the border of Baja California Sur. There's also lots of fun coastal cities like Ensenada here, big resort city, along with, where is it? Probably should have found it before. I thought it was right up here. Maybe it's not on my map. But there's Rosario. Do you see Rosario? It's right there. It's further north than I thought it was. I thought it was closer to Ensenada. It's much closer to Tijuana. So there we go. Rosario, right there. Ensenada is probably the more luxurious resort town, and Rosario is like the spring break beach town, if you can tell the difference between those two. But we'll look at all of them on Google Earth, definitely. Baja California also has some incredible islands. You can see down here in the Bahia de Vizcaíno, which we'll talk more about Vizcaíno in the next episode, where we have Isla Cedros, which is where our history is going to begin, so don't forget about that. There's also a couple of islands here in the Golfo do California, or also known as the bay, I think the Bay of Cortez, or the Sea of Cortez, it's also called. Or it says right here, Mar de Cortez in Mexico. And these islands are actually UNESCO sites. We'll read the little description on UNESCO's website, but do note that Baja California Sur has way more islands in this UNESCO site, so we're going to read it again in the next episode. I just figured that's not really fair to leave it out, because it does have some of these islands in protected areas in the Gulf of California. It says the site comprises 244 islets, and coastal areas that are located in the Gulf of California in northeastern Mexico. The Sea of Cortez and its islands have been called a natural laboratory for the investigation of speciation. Moreover, almost all major oceanographic processes occurring in the planet's oceans are present in the property, giving it extraordinary importance for study. The site is one of striking natural beauty in a dramatic setting formed by rugged islands with high cliffs and sandy beaches, which contrast with the brilliant reflection from the desert and the surrounding turquoise waters. It is home to 695 vascular plant species, more than in any marine and insular property on the World Heritage List. Equally exceptional is the number of fish species, 891, 90 of them endemic. The site, however, contains 39% of the world's total number of species of marine mammals and a third of the world's marine cetacean species. Now, there is a lot. Oh, sorry. I almost tossed my tablet off. There's a lot of sea life happening in here. This is where a lot of whales come to breed, including blue whales, the largest creature to ever have lived on the planet, even in dinosaur times. Humpback whales come along the Pacific here. Who else? I want to say gray whales. And you can find whale sharks, even though they aren't whales, in the Gulf of California. It's just teeming with fantastic life. But like I said, we're going to look more into that the next episode when we go down south here to Baja California Sur and look at some of these cool islands over here, because they're part of this place here, down here. So why don't we get into the history? So like I said, we're going to start down here on Cedros Island. This is where the oldest fishhooks in the Americas have been found, and what's interesting is that they've been dated to about 11,000, or they were made 11,000 years ago, which not quite predates the time we think the Bering Strait crossing happened from Russia over to Canada, but the timeline doesn't really match up. So I think what happened was maybe a Pacific Island culture moved in and settled in and established themselves here and kind of lost that Polynesian flair, became more inland growing people, not sea people. Or the Bering crossing happened far earlier than we thought. It's one or the other. I think they're both logical. We'll probably never know for sure, to be honest, but very early cultures happened here. The Kochimi was one of the major cultures up along here and in the islands as well. But there are many, many others. Like, almost too long to list, but they're found. Oh, they're found. We lost Tijuana. There we go. Can't lose Tijuana. When the Spanish arrived in the early 1500s, they landed in the south. We'll talk about that next time. They thought this was an island, which makes sense. It's very narrow, and you can't see my pencil. It's very narrow, and they hadn't reached all the way north yet, so they thought this was an island, and they thought that this could possibly be the mythical island that belongs to the warrior queen Calafia. So they named it after her, and that's where we get the name California. Isn't that interesting? But the bay was explored in 1539. Any inland explorations failed in the 1500s. Explorations to colonize in the 1600s failed, and that's because the people here were very hostile toward the Spanish. They did not want them settling here, which makes a lot of sense nowadays, doesn't it? The first, I guess, I almost said Hispanic, non-indigenous people to settle here were the Jesuits. They were a missionary group, and they started establishing missions. But in 1767, Spain banned them because they wanted a more secular approach. They did not want an official, religious organization representing them, so they were kicked out. I'm sure it's far more complicated than that. That's the basic explanation. But they were kicked out of all of Spain's colonies and forced to abandon all of their work they had done here. They were replaced by the Franciscans, the most notable of which was Junipero Serra, which, if you're like me and grew up in California, that name is stamped on your brain because he also went farther north and established a lot of California's most famous missions, like San Juan Capistrano, San Francisco, what would eventually become the city of San Francisco, so on and so forth. Of course, missionaries are very problematic these days. Back then they were like, oh, they're doing such a great thing. They're helping out these poor lost souls by giving them jobs and religion. And now we're like, why didn't they leave these people alone? Very famously, on Juneteenth in 2020, protesters knocked down a statue of Junipero Serra in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, which kind of tells you the opinion of Junipero Serra today. But back then he was like a legend. So moving on from that, the Dominicans would also start moving into the peninsula here and creating missions. And in order to kind of establish boundaries between the Franciscans and the Dominicans, they drew a line here in 1802. Said up here belongs to the Franciscans, down here belongs to the Dominicans. And that's why we have two separate regions. Of course, it wasn't long after that when War for Independence broke out, and eventually Mexico did gain its independence. Its territory, of course, up here was far larger, including what's today California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Nevada, so on and so forth. It was absolutely massive. But that would change in 1848 with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This was after the Mexican-American War, which America wound up winning, and they got to negotiate their spoils. And they said, we want pretty much this huge chunk of land up here. And they almost took the peninsula, but decided against it last minute, and I couldn't figure out why. The only thing I read was that they didn't want to deal with this border here with Sonora, so they just let them have the peninsula, because what else is there anyway? They just wanted all of this. So that's why we have this border today. And like I always say on my channel, whenever you see borders like this, Mother Nature does not draw straight lines. If you see a straight line on a map, it was drawn by people, and most likely it means there's nothing there to delineate a border. At least in this part of Mexico's border, it was just lines on a map. There's rivers here, there's the Rio Tijuana, and so on and so forth, but most of it is just a straight line. I should also mention, before all this, in 1832, the new Mexican government abolished missions, and they turned all the missions here into just regular churches. They're not missions. We don't have missions today. They're just regular churches and monasteries and some museums, I believe. Probably all three in one. Trying to think what else to say. I think that era is done. We're going to move into the 20th century, which was quite tumultuous here in Mexico at the start of it. A civil war essentially broke out in the early 1910s. In 1911, revolutionaries took Tijuana. They were fighting against Porfirio Diaz, the current, I suppose, dictator at the time of Mexico. And they held it until 1921. They held pretty much this entire metropolitan area up here until essentially the Civil War had ended. And I think they just became a political party. That works, doesn't it? Now, the reason that Tijuana and Ensenada, so on and so forth, are such big kind of party cities is because in the 1920s, the United States abolished alcohol, sale of it, drinking of it, making it, etc. And many people would hop the border and go drinking. And that's essentially how Tijuana's tourism industry began, along with other major cities here along the coast. So people could booze it up and party while they're drunk. And it's still kind of that mindset today. You don't just go to Tijuana to see the history or the sights or anything. You go there to party. It's a party city for the most part. Same like with the other coastal cities here. Baja California became a state in 1952, and like I said back then, it was Baja California Norte, North Baja California, which makes a lot more sense. But the name was changed later, probably because no one called it that. They just called it Baja. They're having a Baja blast. Who was really having a Baja blast were the major industries up in America who realized that they could build factories in the cities here, employ Mexican citizens to work in various factories, usually for cars, electronics, lots of assembly kinds of things, and save a lot of money. So a lot of these towns, Tecate, you can see some in Rosario, just on the outskirts are these huge like warehouses, and they're not warehouses, they are factories that are assembling a lot of the goods used in America. So it has that industry going for it as well. Sadly, Tijuana has another reputation, not just as a party city, but also a crime city. It was apparently quite easy to smuggle drugs across the border there. It's now much more difficult, but it still happens. Lots of things getting smuggled that we don't want to mention on YouTube, so this video does not get demonetized. I would not have a Baja Blast if that happened. And also medical tourism happens here nowadays. You can get various prescriptions here for far cheaper than you can in the United States. So many people hop over to buy pharmaceuticals for whatever purpose. And it leads to a lot of crime. Tijuana has the second highest homicide rate in the world. So while it's a party city in the daytime, pretty much all the things I read was like, go home at sunset. Go back when the sun goes down. Do not stay here overnight. It is not safe. I also read about how it's pretty much not safe in the daytime too. You could get pickpocketed easily. You could just get cornered and robbed by people. But for the most part, it's a really beautiful city, which is too bad because lots of interesting things happened here. Did you know that Caesar salad was invented in Tijuana? Did you know that? I did not know that until I researched. I will show you the building where it was invented. Why don't we hop over to Google Earth and check it out? Here we are, Baja California. And I'm going to start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. Maybe you're not quite sure where Baja is located. You can see it's this very long peninsula. Good example of a peninsula if you're like a geography teacher at school and you want to teach the children's about land formations. This is a good example of a peninsula. Of course, growing up in San Francisco, this was my example of a peninsula. But this one's even better, I think, because it's far bigger and easier to spot on a globe. So here we are in the North, Baja California. I guess I lied. These islands are part of the North. I thought I was thinking of these islands are in the South. ignore what I said at first. Hope I don't get angry comments actually me about the islands there. But I want to start off showing you the most exciting thing I found on Google Earth, and that's this island over here that I didn't talk about because it's too far away from the mainland to show you on my map, Isla Guadalupe. Because as you see here, here's the mainland, right? There's Cedros Island, and Guadalupe's way over there. Way over there. It's used mainly as, this is militar, but I didn't find anything about military anything encampment. I did find things about a fisherman camp, whatever you call it, for fishermen who are out here in the sea and need a break. But I had to type in to get the slideshow. I want to show you the most exciting thing. I recognized this immediately because this is one of my biggest dreams in life. And I squealed. So if you don't know what this is, to me, I'm like, obvious. This is a great white shark cage. So we're going to see some great white sharks. So if you're not about that, I'll let you know when they're gone. I'm all about that. This is my dream. This is my favorite fish in the world. But isn't it a beautiful island? And look, oh my gosh, you can get right up alongside these beasts. These huge danger fish. Oh, I think they're so cool. Oh, I would lose my mind seeing that in real life. Beautiful plants. Look at it. He's just saying hello. He's just a friendly guy. Look how close you can get to the sharks. Oh, I'd lose it. If I ever come to Mexico, now I know where to go. First stop is this island. So I can see the big boys in the water, swimming around, being silly. Like, it's funny. Aren't you scared of the shark bites? No, I think if I got bit by a shark, I mean, obviously it'd be very dangerous. I would have to go to the hospital, and that could be the end of Eastern Geographica, but I would be so excited after the fact, after I was healed. I would never shut up about it. I'd be showing everyone, look at my shark bite. I got this from my friend, Mr. Shark. I probably wouldn't, but that's my vision. So here's Tijuana. And as you can see, it goes right into San Diego. You can pretty much see the crossing right there from up high. What you can also see is the wall, which, yes, there is actually a huge man-made wall going across the border, like I think all the way like into like Texas. It's absolutely huge. Which you can have your opinions about that. What I think is interesting about the wall is, I was like, what happens at the beach? So here's the wall, and it goes out into the ocean here. Let's see it. It's not a very pretty beach, obviously. But yeah, because this wall's obviously all painted over. But yeah, it goes out into the sea. I guess to the point where you couldn't swim around it. But there are also lots of other things here at the border wall. Right here is a little Peace Park, Friendship Park, which, like, look at the Mexico side is so pretty and decorated in green. The American side's like blah. Oh, it's in 3D. Wow. I never realized the wall was in 3D. I never bothered to check. But yeah. It's all pretty and nice. There's this cool tower and everything, and the American side is just yucky. They didn't even try. But yeah. That is the border. Let's head into, I promised I'd show you where Caesar salad was invented, and I have to remember, I probably should have pinned it. I figured out how to pin things finally. Let's see. I probably have to turn on the everything filter, which can be kind of dangerous because it's going to show you literally everything, including all of the restaurants and shopping centers, but that's kind of what we want, isn't it? That's kind of what we want. Big old hill here. There's a lot of development happening here. They are really trying, the city and Mexican government are really trying to shake off that notion of like this place is dangerous, don't come here, blah blah blah. And trying to make it more modern and more hip and more updated, I suppose. Shopping mall there. I imagine you can get lots of good knockoff things there. Okay, I just gave up and typed it in. I was way off. Look how far off I was. I was looking over here. Yeah, no, it's way over here. Because there's lots of neat things over here in this part of Tijuana. First of all, this is Caesar's. Let me show you. I think there's a picture of the outside here. There's also, looks really good. This looks like a fancy restaurant. Hotel Caesar's. And just this is where Caesar salad was invented. That's so neat. You would think it's like an American kind of thing. It's kind of a sloppy salad, but it's a Mexican thing. Up here we have the Monument Arch, which really stands out in the skyline here. It's really neat. It's no St. Louis, but it stands out enough, doesn't it? That's a cool selfie spot, I suppose. There's also, I don't know if I can find it here, but I can show you the one way down here in Ensenada. Beautiful beaches. We'll look at those in a second. You know, let me turn off the everything. I can see all the Walmarts and stuff. We don't need that. Of course, now I'm not going to find it. Let's see. It was over here, wasn't it? There's the big harbor, and look, there's a cruise ship docked there. And I think it's over here. I found it. There's the cruise ship. Right here. The big bandera. So the Mexican government had this idea to put massive flags in areas of cultural and historic importance. There's a big one in Tijuana, bigger, but it's kind of hard to find. So I'm showing you this one in Ensenada. As you can see, it is so big. That's too big. But here's the beautiful little port here. It's a fun little resort place. If we go, you can see I dropped a pin. Thank you. You can kind of see more of the nicer establishments here along the water. Nope. Dock places. Maybe I'm thinking of Rosario. Let's head back to Rosario. Although there are some nice resorts here. But Rosario, which we learned is closer to Tijuana than it is to Ensenada, has really gorgeous beaches. We're going to look at these beaches for sure. For sure. We have to see right here, there's a big, beautiful, wow, I just blanked on the word. I guess, boardwalk, kind of. Baja sand. Look at that. Looking at the beaches here makes me feel like I'm in Southern California. And I have to remind myself that Southern California is literally just a hop, skip, and a jump away. Of course, it looks like Southern California here with these lovely beaches. And, yeah, these beautiful views. This is what Southern California looks like on the beach. Very, very nice. Suppose I can show you Mexicali, even though I don't think I found anything super neat to show you there, other than like, look at the contrast here between huge city and the United States. It's just farmland. There's Calexico. And here's Mexicali. I guess we can see what they have along the wall here. Casa de la Cultura. Just like a theater. Let's see this. Historical. Looks like it's in an old church. Interesting. Oh, that's neat. Little Japanese pagoda there. Beautiful churches. Fun restaurants, like a little 50s diner there. That's fun. It has its own tourist draw as well. What's this? Museo Sol de Niño. Oh, it's a children's museum, obviously. Those are fun, but not very, like, historical, you know. We can see this huge salt pan here. Massive, leading into the desert. We have the big old mountains here. Getting into the south. And make sure we don't cross the border because we're going to look at those later. So why don't I end this? You can see it's just very dry, rocky. Oh, you know what I didn't mention? The highest peak in Baja, which is right here, Cerro Picacho del Diablo. I wonder if it's the devil's Picacho. If it's maybe volcanic. I didn't look it up. Maybe it's had a Baja blast in its time. Pretty in the snow. But I don't know, maybe not. I don't know what Picacho means in Spanish. Can someone tell me in the comments? I'd appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, very indicative of the mountains here. Very, what's it called? Coniferous style trees here. Oops, went right back. And yeah, I didn't read much about the interior other than you can like ride on your ATVs. Let's look at the mountain range. And, hike around. But like I said, this state isn't really known for that. You can do that. But if you say you're going to Baja, they're thinking you're going to have a Baja blast up in Tijuana. They're not going to think you're going hiking and camping in the mountains, right? Or making snow angels in the snow. Oh, or making snowmen in the snow. They wanted to build a snowman. Snowman's having a Baja blast. But yeah, I'm going to end this on a slideshow for an island. I guess we'll look at these. Let's see if he'll give me a slideshow. Probably not. It's weird how I have to type in all these islands to make pictures show up. But a lot of the islands here and in the south, as we'll see, are pretty treeless. And I'm pretty sure that's just because any trees here got chopped down very, very long ago. And now they're very dry, rocky, but that doesn't mean that they're completely abandoned. They're absolutely teeming with all kinds of life. And like we learned in the beginning, these are protected by UNESCO. So, let's see, what island is this? Gale de la Guarda. Let's see a slideshow for this, and we'll call it a day. So thank you so much for watching. Oh, sorry, Danger Noodle. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing because, like I said far too many times in this video, next we're heading down south to Baja California Sur, and you are going to see some of the most fantastic ancient rock art that I've ever seen. I do have some favorites. I love me some cave art, some ancient rock carvings. These are absolutely breathtaking in its size and scope. Plus, we're going to Cabo. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. And we're a UNESCO site. You guys always love the UNESCO sites. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational. I forgot to warn you when the sharks were gone. I hope you picked up context clues. I got too excited about the sharks. Anyway, I hope that you have a good night.